My name is Dennis Gill with the Americans in Wartime Experience. Today's date is 26 March 2022, and I'm here in Nokesville, Virginia, conducting an interview with Stuart Hubbard. Welcome, sir. Appreciate you sitting down and talking with us.
Good to be with you.
If you could just give us some background. Where did you grow up? Where were you born? Where did you go to high school? Things like that.
I'm a legacy. Dad was in the Navy, career Navy, Mustang, as am I. I did most of my growing up in Springfield, Virginia. It's odd to be from here and still live here.
Right.
But we lived all over the country, including Hawaii.
Okay. And he was in the military?
He was in the Navy.
He was in the Navy as well? Okay. So why did you decide to join the military? And I guess I know why you joined the Navy, because of Dad?
Sure, yeah. I couldn't think of a better one to join. So high school was difficult for me because I didn't do what I was supposed to, not because it was that difficult. I didn't have a college plan. A guy on harps, hometown recruiting is what it's called now, stopped by. He was a friend of my brother. He goes, "You know what you need, son?" And I said, "You know what? I sure do." That was that. So I went with him down to the recruiting station. It was December of the year that I graduated from high school. And the recruiter says, "I've got just the thing for you." And he said, you can refuel jets on the deck of an aircraft carrier. And I said, "That sounds awesome. I'll do it." So he goes, "How old are you?" 17. "So you'll need your parents' permission." Wait, what? So I went home at dinner. I told Mom and Dad, "Hey, I'm going into the Navy." I'd quit everything I had done before that. But I knew that if I signed a contract, I had to go. This was the forcing function. So Dad looked up slowly from his dinner and said, "What are you going to do?" I said, "Aviation bosun's mate." He goes, "No, you're not. About one of those guys gets blown off a carrier deck a week. They rarely find him, and I have to sleep with your mother. You're not doing that." "What do you mean? They didn't tell you I have to sign a permission slip for you?" "No." "Hand me that." So I hand it to him. He looks, he goes, "Parent or guardian, you're 17. You can't sign yourself in." "Dad!" He said, I'll let you be an nuclear electrician, a sonarman, fire controlman, and one other thing that I didn't want to do." He goes, "I'll write those down for you, take them back to the chief, and tell him that's what you want to do." So the chief showed me each thing. He had a little video on each. And sonar looked like kind of a cool thing. You find submarines. And I was going into the surface Navy. That'll be important in a minute. And Dad said, "Don't do that. Don't do that." He said, "The submarines, we can find them at about 20,000 yards. They can find us at 200 miles. He said, "Try submarines. Do that." He said, "There's two kinds, fast attacks and boomers." He said, "Fast attacks are the jets, boomers are helicopters." He goes, "Fast attacks is where it's at." "Okay, Dad, I'm going into a destroyer." "What? We just had this talk." "I know, but I understand destroyers. I've been around them my whole life. I've been up and down gangplanks." "Okay." He said, "One thing I want you to know before you go. There will be people when you get to your ship that are always on board. It's because they're restricted. It's because they've done something. They've gotten punished." He said, "They have nothing to lose and will take you with them. Stay away from people who have nothing to lose." So it was years later that I realized how important that message was. And so the other thing he said, the commanding officer should have to ask your name. I was going in enlisted. He said, he shouldn't know your name off the top of his head. The only people he knows are the people that get in trouble. So off I went to my boot camp, went on to my first destroyer, and it was one of the older ones, USS Forrest Sherman, and DD 931. It was a good ship, great skipper. We were getting ready to go to the Mediterranean in 1979, fall of 1979. Some Ayatollah was making all kinds of accusations and waves over in Iran, and Mom and Dad never came to see us off, but this time they did. And Dad came aboard, and immediately, now he's a retired commander by now, immediately he says, "Who's your skipper?" I said, "James Booth." He goes, "Jim?" "Sir, Dad, I call him skipper. I don't know." "Where's he at?" "Dad, I don't know." I'm a third-class petty officer in E4. Dad had been on the sister ship of that ship. He knew his way around. So he goes running to the wardroom where the officers hang out. "Where's the skipper?" "Stateroom." Dad, I'm not allowed to go up there. That's officer country." "Follow me." And we go up, bang, bang on his door, enter. And then my dad's name is Charles, shows his face. "Charlie, what are you doing here?" "Wait, Dad, you know this guy?" "Oh yeah, known him for years." I've been on the ship for over a year. Dad knew who the skipper was. Never mentioned it. Didn't want me to rely on that. Wanted me to make my own way. So we transited the Mediterranean, went right through it to the Suez Canal and into the Indian Ocean. From the Indian Ocean into the Persian Gulf. Dad saw geopolitically, that things were heating up, and he knew we weren't going to stay in the Med. And he knows how these things work. And sure enough, that's where we went. So we cut holes in the top of the water for a couple of months. And then in April of 1980, President Carter had a rescue attempt. By now, the Iranian hostages were a big deal. They'd been taken by the Ayatollah. And President Carter decided we were going to go rescue them. It was risky, but he wanted to show the world that they just couldn't do that. So one afternoon, the Persian Gulf was so warm, it was 85 degrees. Our sonar gear was still tube-based. It was so old. And the skipper said, "Not with these temperatures in your gear, you've got to shut it down. Besides, no submarine's going to make it in here anyway." So we stood watch elsewhere. And I stood watch up on the bridge so I could learn more about it. One day, we're close to land. "Skipper, what land is that?" "Iran." "What?" "Iran." He goes, "Probably a good idea for you to get below." "Yes, sir." So I tootle on down below, and midnight that night, we go to general quarters. We had taped up all the windows, just an X in each window in case they broke. And then all of a sudden, the Iranian patrol boats that the United States had sold them with Harpoon missiles, which are ours, chased us out of the Persian Gulf. Now they were with their fire control radar, they painted us, which means all they had to do was hit the button. We knew what all the signs were. We knew that if we did anything, they could fire on us. And we had no recourse against our own missiles. That was a life lesson. So, out of the Persian Gulf we come. The rescue attempt fails miserably. We come out of the Persian Gulf at battle stations and at flank speed. And all of a sudden we start hearing jets and find out the next day those were our jets. The Kennedy battle group was not far off, and when they found out that we were being painted by fire control radar, they came and swooped down and did low and slow over the Iranian patrol boats, and wouldn't you know it, they turned and went back home. We went down to Mombasa, Kenya, which is below the equator. If you know anything about the Navy and you cross the equator, there's a big initiation. So we did that. Wasn't as fun as it looks. In fact, it wasn't fun at all.
What's that called?
Shellback initiation. And so we got down there. We'd been at sea for a good 3 months, just at sea. We were low on food. We were low on everything. We were having canned ham for every meal. I still can't look it square in the eye. We get down to Mombasa, and they say, Liberty call, Liberty call. A third of the crew stays on board in case we have to get underway emergently. And I went out in town and looked around, wasn't much there, and came back to the ship, and there's my sea bag sitting in the dirt. Wait, that's got my name on it. Well, turned out I was getting ready to go to a technical school, and we had a C-141, a refrigerated C-141, sitting on the tarmac, very short tarmac, and they said, anybody that needs to go back to the States, get your sea bag and go there. So the guys had packed up my sea bag. I haven't any idea what I left there. Still don't know. But got my sea bag. I'm in shorts and a short sleeve shirt. Got on board the aircraft. Did I mention it was refrigerated? Yeah. So they couldn't turn that off. I don't know why, but they couldn't. So then we all dig through our sea bag for our foul weather gear, get stuff on, and come back to the United States. So I go out to San Diego for technical school, and one of our instructors is a guy named Chief Gene Barrios. And I wasn't doing so well. He said, all right, Rock, you're going to stay after. You have extra study until 4. I get in at 6. I like my coffee black and hot, fresh. I don't want something sitting on the burner. Chief, why are you telling me this? Now I'm in E5. Chief, why are you telling me this? Oh, because you're going to study with me from 6 to 7. You're going to start class. You're going to go to extra study, and we're going to get you through this. So I got through it thanks to Gene Barrios. And years later, now I'm in E6. I'm in submarines. And I had been to a submarine technical school. The Navy calls them C schools, letter C. So I'm on my first ship, my first submarine, the Minneapolis St. Paul. And so it was a pre-commissioning unit. It wasn't putting in service yet. It was being built. And I was the lead and petty officer until my chief got here. Fine. Then I get the call from the lieutenant. Hey, chief's here. Go get him on the pier. Yes, sir. I pop topside, go down the pier. It's Gene Barrios. He takes his hat, all but throws it on the ground and says, "It's my rock." We had a wonderful relationship. He was calm, didn't get excited about much. Told me what I needed to do and what I didn't need to do. I was a 23-year-old E6. It was way too young. Way too young. Not like I was anything special, but people didn't like to stay in submarines.
Right.
It was a difficult life. Very difficult. We were at sea about 10 months a year. It was 2 weeks here, 3 months. 6 months, a week, a day. It was the early 80s, and the Soviets at the time were testing our acoustic tripwire, if you will. And they would creep in, and we were the only 688 class submarine, in parens, the fast kind, that was available. And then we'd get sent out. One day I said, honey, we lived in New London, Connecticut. You know, for as far north as it is, it never snows. She looks at me, still my wife, by the way, 39 years later, looks at me and says, how would you know? You're never here during the winter. As it turned out, the Soviets, as their ports started to freeze north to south, pulled all their assets out. Height of the Cold War. Somebody just waiting for somebody to do something stupid. So what did we do? We put to sea also to counter that threat. I'd never been home during the winter. So I ended those 6 years in submarines and surface Navy and wanted to go to college. Oh, thank goodness. My wife was more than happy for me to get out of the Navy and go to college and put that behind us. Well, just as I was finishing college with a business degree and an interest in medicine, I was putting myself through school with a beltway contractor here in town. And this guy walks up. He's a retired commander. So what are you going to do after this? Oh, I want to be a hospital administrator. I loved medicine. I just didn't have the fire and the ability to become a doctor. And so I got a business degree, hospital administrator. He goes, you could do that in the Navy. What? They have those? Oh yeah, my wife's a recruiter. She does nuclear power, and the guy that does the hospital administrator's not so sharp. She'll be glad to talk with you. No pressure, you do what you want. So I talked with her. I applied, and I was an alternate, picked as an alternate for a commission. Somebody had to turn their commission down for me to get picked up, and I was. So,
were you still in the Navy at this point?
No.
You had gotten out.
I'd gotten out and gone to college,
Okay.
and peace was breaking out all over. It was 89. The wall would come down in 91. So I went home. I said, honey, I got selected for a commission. And she started to cry. She didn't want me to go back in the Navy, be gone all that time. She was about to have a baby, and this didn't fit what we had talked about as our plans. Don't blame her a bit. There are times in one's life where you hear a still small voice and you say to yourself, I know that's what I'm supposed to do. That was one of those times. I was going to go against my wife's wishes, which we were a team. We didn't do that. And I did. I accepted the commission, went off to knife and fork school, and ended up at Bethesda. So as I'm getting ready, it's time for a commissioning ceremony. And so I call my dad. Dad, I've been accepted for a commission. Great. I said, will you swear me in? No. What? Son, you need somebody to take an interest in your career. Somebody that's inside the active duty Navy now, knows what you'll need to do, how to do it, and will be your sponsor. That person who has an interest in your career. He said, find a captain that's been around a while. You're going to Bethesda, find one at Bethesda. See if they'll do it. He said, that will serve you better than if I. I was crestfallen. But that's what I did. So I found Captain Don Wilson. It's probably a good time to say that I went into the Medical Service Corps of the Navy. And Captain Wilson had been an icon in the Medical Service Corps. Probably, at that time, probably 25 years he'd had command. So he agreed to do it. And my family was at my commissioning. And during the commissioning ceremony, my dad, holding his sword, he's retired now, holding his sword, steps up and presents me his sword. He said, my mother got this for me the year you were born. I still have that sword. And Dad's still living. It is one of my prized possessions. So there I am, a hospital administrator. Great. So he sends me to orthopedics. He said, go down there and fix that. You're prior enlisted. You know what's going on. You know what's what. And go down there and fix that. I went down there. The chief of orthopedics had hair long over his ears. Had no regard for anybody. He'd been in the Army and the Air Force, now the Navy. And he's Navy captain, doctor. And he said, they need some military bearing down there. And the Admiral, it was a 2-star, the Admiral's tired of hearing from them. Okay, sir. I went down there. There was 20 or so corpsmen. I was there for a week, and I said, hey, 2 weeks from now we're going to have a uniform inspection because their uniforms look terrible. And so we did. We had an inspection, and they didn't believe it. Are you really doing this? Yeah, we're really doing this. It was a rough ride, but we got through it just fine. While I was at Bethesda in the orthopedic clinic, occasionally a VIP would come through and need some kind of medical care, whether it was a general officer, flag officer, or a secretary of the Navy, whatever it was. Well, one day, the Admiral's office calls and says, hey, Jim Webb is going to come. Former Secretary Jim Webb. Oh, okay. He's a permanently disabled Marine from Vietnam who won the Navy Cross. He'll come at 5 p.m. and meet him, get his x-rays, get him seen, and get him out. So I'm talking to the Admiral's aide, and I said, does the Admiral not like him? Oh, no, he likes and respects him. But VIPs that sit around, they look for things that are wrong. And then they call the Admiral. The quicker we do this, the quicker he's out, the fewer things he sees to chirp about. Yes, sir, got it. So I'm sitting there with then Secretary Webb in a checkered short-sleeve shirt. And he said, so, I see you're a submariner. Yes, sir. Which ones? Philadelphia and Minneapolis, St. Paul. Were you on the Philadelphia when I presented the Legion of Merit to the skipper on the pier? Yes, sir, I was. He goes, that was a hot run. So, submarine patrols are called runs. We had done some rather remarkable stuff. It's publicized now, but he knew about that. And he went on and on. So I was doing just fine. There was no more complaints from orthopedics. And the Admiral came up, put his arm around my shoulder one day. As I'm walking down the hall, he says, I need you to metastasize. It was a surgeon. Sir, I need you to spread your time to ophthalmology. Okay, do the same thing you did there. Keep that, add that. Sir, yes, sir. So I started talking with them. And then the problem was is that the chief of ophthalmology would call the Navy Surgeon General when he had a complaint over the head of the commander. The commander was tired of that. Well, I did that, and then the aide to the commander left. And they said, do you want the job? Of course I do. Captain Wilson called me in. He said, I was an ensign, an 01. He said, I don't think it's a good idea for you to take this. Sir, why not? Rarefied air, plush carpeting, you're an ensign. This is the fishbowl of Navy medicine. Everybody sees what you do. He said, you're going to take the job. And I want you to know we'll all be here when you're done. Sir, we will all be here when you're done. What do you mean? You figure that out and come back. Let me know. That was, don't wear the boss's stars. Those are not your stars. They're his. You can help us to facilitate things to make the command run better. Or you can do whatever you want. But this is just part of your career. You have a long way to go. We have long memories. We'll all be here when you're done. And they were. And they were. Let's go back to the Philadelphia. Philadelphia was my first submarine. We were going for a deployment, and so the first thing you do is you go shoot fake torpedoes. Now, by this time, I was a brand new sonar supervisor. Sonar Sup has 3 or 4 then men, now it could be men or women, 3 or 4 sitting there, and they interpret everything for the control room, the officer of the deck. Well, we'd been shooting torpedo. The skipper had 9 prospective commanding officers on board. They were going to get their own boats. But first they had to show to the skipper they could handle his boat. Man, everything had to be right. All the time. Nothing could be out of place. Everything had to be clean. At regular intervals, another one would become the officer of the deck. And then we'd do drills. All day long. And the skippers had to, the prospective skippers, had to run the drills to see if they could handle it or not. And I was a brand new sonar soup, so they put me on the mid-watch. So midnight to 8 a.m. At least there are no drills, and you can't hurt anything. We'd been shooting torpedoes all day. When you shoot torpedoes, you find something to follow. They usually have something on the surface that's making noise. You follow that, and you shoot this torpedo. Mark 48 torpedoes are about 21 feet long, 3,600 pounds. Freight trains. And so they have a half load of fuel so that they don't go off the range. The range has hydrophones going up, hydrophones going across, so in 3D, so to speak. So they can see what you did right and wrong. Well, it was 12:15. 00:15. We're just going along, punching holes in the ocean. And all of a sudden, the broadband operator, broadband is all of the noise coming in.
Right.
Here's a toilet flush and an electric razor. And that's classic torpedo. So he said, Stu, torpedo in the water. Now keep in mind it's the early 80s. Everybody's waiting for the first strike. You have no idea what that is? I pick up the microphone. Con sonar, torpedo in the water, bearing 324, drifting right. Well, that is general quarters. Now the skipper, he can pipe in things that he wants us to make calls on. They're not there. Is the skipper doing this? Is this real? What if I'm wrong? 4 seconds is what it took from the time of the toilet flush is the ejection from the other submarine to the time that I called it. 4 seconds. Now, dong, 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 general quarters, all hands man your battle stations. The skipper sleeps right across the hall from sonar and right next to control. He comes in, and by now the senior chief is there next to me because he's the battle station's sonar soup. I'm the battle station's broadband operator. So I'm getting ready to sit down. He says, "What in the is going on?" And senior chief said, "I don't know, I'm getting settled in. And I'm still calling the torpedo, which is coming into behind us, which we call the baffles. So it's acquired us." And the skipper looks at me and says, "Get in my stateroom. Stay there until I come back." Remember, he's got 9 prospective commanding officers. If this is not what it looks like, he's going to look like an idiot. Right. So we corkscrew down, churning up the water, making the torpedo, making it difficult for it to find us. And then we come out at the bottom at flank speed, and torpedo goes away. So skipper comes back in, secure from general quarters, gets me out of his stateroom. I think my career's over. Hauls me almost bodily back into sonar. "Senior chief, what just happened?" He said, "Sir, that was a torpedo. Do you know where we are right now?" Grabs the mic. "Con skipper, where are we right now?" "We're at this latitude and No, where are we?" 10 miles off of the range, the torpedo range." "Really?" "Well, we've got to pop up and tell Sublant that we've been fired on. Regardless of what happens, we've been fired on, and that we evaded." And he does that. We go back down. We keep a really tight watch, looking for anything else to happen. Next day, we go up. Every 6 hours, we go up for message traffic. We go up, and we get a message back. That was a practice torpedo that ran off the range and acquired own ship, us. So we find out later that new guy at the range put in a full load of fuel, not half. So as it's coming for us, it should have cut off and just bobbed to the top. It didn't. It kept coming. So that was a standard Mark 48, but we outran it. That's not supposed to happen. So probably a year later, we had the Mark 48 Advanced Capability, or ADCAPs. Nobody could outrun those. They still use them. So the skipper, when we outrun the torpedo, takes me from sonar to the control room. He goes, "Gentlemen, that was an actual torpedo, and my boy called it in 4 seconds." I went from 0 to hero like that. Never seen anything like it. Never happened since. And the crew was mad because they had to get out of bed. I get it. I would be too. The officers would pat me on the back as they walked by. Life lesson.
Can I rewind for just a second?
Oh, yeah.
You talk about the Iranian hostages and the attempt to rescue them, which was Operation Eagle Claw. Did you guys have any role in that?
We did.
What was the role?
Guardship.
Okay.
So a guard ship is is a surface ship that is in the area when helicopters or aircraft are going feet wet somewhere over the ocean. Because if somebody falls out of the sky, then you want to get over there as quickly as you can and fish them out. So we were a guard ship for Desert One, also called Eagle Claw.
Okay. And at some point, so so once you get commissioned, at some point you stay stateside, but at some point you participate in Iraqi freedom.
I did.
What was your role in that?
I was a medical planner. So, as some folks know, Navy Medical Department provides medical care for the Marine Corps. So we can be what's called organically assigned, which means you go there and you go from 22% body fat down to 18. 18% body fat might be what you are, but isn't what I was. And I had to drop weight, and that's salads without dressing, lots of water, and lots of working out. Now, you can also stay with the Marine Corps as assigned in your Navy uniform, but they view that as really not with them. You're either with us or you're not.
Right.
And if you can't keep up, I don't care what uniform you're in, doesn't matter. So I was with the Marine Corps, and they needed somebody to go over and set up the evacuation routes for a war that was about to break out in 2003. And so at that time, if Johnny was injured on the battlefield, CNN would announce it before we could call Johnny's mother. And I got a call from the Assistant Secretary of Health Affairs and said, yeah, I was a computer guy by then, a medical computer guy. Look, I need you to go over and set up the evac routes. I need you to get this software into theater so that we can use it, so we know how many beds we have, we know where the surgeons are. In wartime, they're the most popular folks, whether it's a general surgeon, neuro, or orthopedic. Neuro and orthopedic are critical. You need to put them as close to the fight as you can without them getting in the fight. It's and you need to have a clear area that medevac can get in and get out safely. And the evac routes were from battlefield to either what was called a CASH then, Combat Support Hospital, or which is Army, or a Fleet Hospital, which is Navy, and they are large, tented, and when I say large, city block, so that they can debride the wound and get any dirt out, and then send everybody back to launch stool. When they would close the wound, they would whip stitch like this. Usually when you close a wound, you tie, you knot, you tie, you knot. No, they were packing it so that when they got back to launch stool and it was in a more antiseptic environment, they could really do the surgery that they needed to. So those evac routes were critical. The software was critical. So I got there, and the one star there, he said, look, Lieutenant, I appreciate you coming here. It's a long way, I know, but we don't have time for this. We just don't. And Secretary Rumsfeld learned from the Gulf War that we didn't have a handle on where people were. And Gulf War syndrome was something that sucked everybody dry for a long period of time. And I understand that he said we will not have another Gulf War illness. So when I was called by the Assistant Secretary, she said, Secretary Rumsfeld does not want this to happen again. We need to know where people are. We need to account for where they are. You guys have the software, get it out there, yada, yada. I sit down with the general when I'm there. Oh, you've come a long way, but we don't have time for this. We're about to have a war. Sir? Look, we are planning everything. We don't have time for your experimental software. Sir, yes, sir. Got on the plane, went back home. Assistant Secretary said, I understand you're back. Yes, ma'am. Be right there. How'd it go? General said look, I'm not in the business of dropping the dimes on generals. How did it go? He said he didn't have time. Okay, thank you. Book yourself some tickets for next week. Ma'am? Book yourself some tickets for next week. So I did. And I get a call back right before I'm supposed to leave. Secretary Rumsfeld took care of that. There was a personal forum message sent to the general. A P4? Because of me? Not because of you. Because of him. Well, what am I walking back into? Holy cow. I get there, and I'm assigned to the CENTCOM surgeon, not the general staff. CENTCOM surgeon says, all right, where are you going to go? I don't know, sir. Where should I go? Yeah, you need to go to here, to here, to here, to here. All right. He goes, go to the operations center. You'll find when planes come in and out, put yourself on one, and go do what you're supposed to do. Yes, sir. He was a colonel. So I go over to the TOC, get on a plane, we do what we're supposed to do. Oh, before I left, he said, have you ever heard the saying, come back with your shield or on it? No, sir. That's what Spartan mothers said as they sent their children out to war. Don't screw this up. Come back with your shield or on it. Yes, sir. So we hopscotched around theater, doing training, setting up software, all that kind of stuff. I said, sir, can I just show you this before I leave? Look, you've got 20 minutes. So we demo to the colonel. He goes, why didn't you tell me it did all this? This is not a good time to say I did. He goes, we can really use this. Yes, sir, that's what I was hoping. So I stay in theater for another month and then go back home, and I retire in October of 2003.
You talked earlier about when you went back when you got your commission, went back in the Navy, your wife was not exactly on board with it.
Sure.
She eventually came around, I assume.
I think she did.
You're not resentful all these years later.
Oh, no. She's very sweet. It was just that we had decided, okay, I'm getting out of the Navy. I'm going to college. I'm going to become a hospital administrator. It'll be great. And then I made a unilateral decision to go back in the Navy. That's the only time I've done that in our 39 years together. I don't blame her for being upset. I'd have been upset too.
Right.
She didn't. Now, we have this saying around our house, pieces breaking out all over, honey. What could go wrong? Because that's what I told her in 1989 when I went back in. And then 91, look, the wall fell. We're fine. And then in 91, later in 91, Gulf War broke out.
Right.
Well, one of the things that they asked me to do at Bethesda that had nothing to do with being the Admiral's aide was to become the assistant officer in charge of presidential treatment. And that required what's called a Yankee White clearance. And it took about a year to obtain. So as all of my peers went out to the hospital ship to go do what they've been trained to do, I stayed at Bethesda because I had the Yankee White clearance. They couldn't just make that happen for somebody. And my wife was very happy. I was kind of wishy-washy about it. I didn't want to leave my family, but this is what we'd trained for. So I was the assistant officer in charge of presidential treatment at Bethesda for First President Bush.
You were enlisted and commissioned. Did you enjoy one more than the other? I know that's totally different.
It is. It is. I always felt like, as when I was enlisted, that I could do more, but nobody would let me. I can help you more. No, you're not senior enough.
Right.
When I became commissioned, I was able to apply some leadership where I thought it was necessary, and apply evenly, and really help things move forward. I'm a doer. If I wasn't fixing something, I'd be a plumber.
Right.
It's just who I am.
Right.
Whether it's the baseball league or church or anywhere,
Right.
it's who I am.
Yeah. Did you see that you had an advantage because you were enlisted? You had a different
absolutely.
perspective?
You bet.
Yeah.
You bet. So I had a senior chief in orthopedics. She should have applied all the military discipline that was necessary. I was an ensign. Now, prior enlisted ensign, but still an ensign nevertheless. She sat in her office. And the enlisted, they didn't care because she didn't care. I walked into her office, I opened it, and she was knitting. I kid you not. You can't make this stuff up. So I called the command master chief, went up to see him. Master Chief, I need your help. I either need senior chief to do her job, or I need for her to not do it there. And about a week later, she moved to a different place. And the other officers and the senior enlisted said, "You fired a senior chief?" No, I think she did that. She did that on her own. You've heard of Road, retired on active duty? That's kind of what she was. She could have been a great asset to the folks there, and I don't know what had happened previous, but she just wasn't doing it.
Yeah. You have time to look back on it. What do you think the most rewarding or memorable part of your career was? Any particular thing that you did or that you experienced?
Certainly taking care of the president, working with the White House. I was an aide twice. They called me a slow learner. Usually after you're an aide,
Right.
You don't ever want to do that again. It is grueling. And the second time I was on the staff of the Navy Surgeon General. And they had just fired somebody, an aide. And they said, I got a Friday afternoon phone call from Captain Candelaria. "Stu, Tom Candelaria." "Yes, sir." "I need your help with something." "What's that?" We fired one of the executive assistants / aides. "Oh, I'm sorry. We need a new one." "Okay." He said, "Do you think you could do that for me?" I said, "Sir, you're a Navy captain. Tell me what you want me to do, and I'll do that." He said, "Okay, well, your orders are cut. You're coming Monday." This was Friday afternoon. "Your orders are cut. You're coming Monday." Takes a while to get all that stuff in a position. So off I went, got everything fixed. Again, I was kind of a fixer. People want to do a good job if you let them. So I got everything smoothed out on the Surgeon General staff, on my part of it. There's a little mafia that runs that staff called the the lieutenants or the executive assistants.
Right.
And so I got everything calmed down in the Admiral's area. There had been EEO complaints, there had been harassment complaints. All that was withdrawn because the other officer had moved on. Everything was fine. I'm in it for a year. I'd been in the job before that for a year, and then they moved me. I was in that job for a year, and then they said, hey, we need somebody on the green side with the Marine Corps. You're a computer guy. This needs to be the computer guy, the computer medical guy for the Marine Corps. It was called the Marine Corps C4I Medical Requirements Officer. You vet all of the electronics, the medical electronics going into the Marine Corps. And so as soon as that was all calmed down, I get another Friday afternoon phone call, this time from the detailer. Hey, we need your smarts over here. Okay. Have you been there a year yet? Yeah, I think just a year and a month. Okay, that's fine. 2 weeks later, I was gone. Detailers changed. Something came up about me being at 3 different commands for a year each. New detailer calls me and says, Stu? Yes, ma'am. Look, you need to quit hopscotching, all right? Get to a command, stay there. You've been at 3 different places in 3 years. Ma'am, you know I didn't choose that, right? Well, you need to tell them no if they try to move you again. I was lieutenant commander. The detailers are captains. That's just a bad idea.
Right.
If they need you somewhere, they need you somewhere. Go and do. So I was kind of a fixer. Still am.
Yeah. You've had time to look back on it. It's been a fair amount of years since you retired. How do you think that your military experience has shaped who you are now?
Oh my goodness, yes. It has. I was a leader at a young age. I was given a tremendous amount of responsibility from day one as an officer. Day one. Being the assistant officer in charge of presidential treatment doesn't get much more intense than that. It's 10,000 hours of preparation for 15 minutes of sheer terror. It's getting the president into the hospital, up to the treatment area, and locked down. The preparation was exhaustive, and then everything would go well, and we could breathe. I think that was one of my highlights. I received a personal letter of appreciation from the White House physician when I left. I don't think that was normal. I don't know, maybe it is. But he cited the things that he appreciated that I did. One of those was when President Bush was in Japan and started to pass out. They flew him back. He had well publicized, I'm not speaking out of school, well publicized Graves' disease, and they got him from Andrews, flew him to Bethesda on a Sunday, and we were there to meet him. There were no leaks. None. Which is remarkable. And we got pinged by the media, each one of us, on our personal phones, this, that, and the other. Nothing. And it went well. Went well. So I'd say that. I'd say going to war went well. I'm glad I did. I don't think that's something I need to do again.
Right.
And came home with sound mind and body, for which I'm grateful every day.
Is there one thing that you'd like, maybe your grandkids or your grandkids one day to know about your service?
My submarine service is some of my proudest moments. You can go a lifetime and never meet somebody that's done that. Done it well. Been on 2 different submarines, one of which I put into commission, helped to put into commission. In the Navy, it's called a plank owner. I'd like them to know about that. I'll be writing about that sometime in my future. It's a place that most people never get to know about. They call it the silent service for a reason. Submarines don't have hull numbers on them. Surface ships do. They're great big and near the bow. Submarines, they have magnetic hull numbers that they take off when they go to sea. So when the bad guys are along the river that you transit, they just know that that's one of the submarines. They don't know which one. And then we go out and do what we do. If you want accolades, submarines are a bad place for you.
Right. Is life on a submarine, I mean, it would seem like it's almost not miserable, but
oh, yes,
not
it
a
is.
happy place.
Yes, it is miserable.
Okay.
Yes, it is. You could be in 8-hour watches. You could be in 6-hour watches. You could be in 12-hour watches. And you're going to do the same thing. The longest I was underwater was about 101 days. For a fast attack, that's a long time. Usually we would get someplace, pull into port, get some fresh food, that kind of stuff. You may have heard in World War II that they used to walk on their food and then eat down through their food. They still do that. You carry as much as you can. And you have number 10 cans that are like this, and they're in boxes, and you have 6 per box, and you put them in the passageway. There's a problem with that. As you eat that away, you get holes in the floor. And you have to be careful where you walk.
Wow. Is there any recreating on a submarine? I mean, is there any downtime, or are you resting when there's a downtime?
Well, let's say you're in 8-hour watches, the best possible. Then you're 8 on, and then you're 16 off. In that 16, you have to do maintenance on equipment. You might have to work on your quals, your qualifications. Anything else that, because once you're in the room, sonar shack, once you're there, you're there. You can get up and run to the head, but that's about it. Or get coffee. And you better come back with the right mixture. Heaven help you if you don't. But those 16 hours, you have to sleep sometime too. And depending on how long maintenance takes, you may or may not get that. So, is it miserable? Yep. Can you do recreation? On boomers, the ballistic missile submarines, they have room for treadmills and things like that, and bikes. I'm not aware of any fast attacks that have that much room. Half of the submarine is the engine room. Half. That's 360 feet long. And then they pack all 125 people into the front that we call the cone because of its shape.
Right.
So the engine room, folks, you're either an engine room or a coner. Coners, we just push them through the water. That's all we do.
Right. One of the reasons that we do these interviews is to preserve your story, preserve it for future generations. Someone might come across this in 100 years, let's say. What message would you like them to know?
Serve. Please serve. You will learn things you never even imagined. You will learn things about yourself. You will learn things about others. You will learn how to lead, or you'll learn how to follow. One of those things. But you will come out with a brand new appreciation for who you've become. I think one of the most valuable things that I learned in the Navy, especially in submarines, was where the edge of my envelope is. How far I can be pushed, how much sleep I can miss, what to get excited about, and what not. Now in my civilian life, one of the places that I volunteer is with Prince William County Fire and Rescue and the police department as a chaplain. I was never a chaplain in the Navy. God called me after I got out. I'm also a pastor. I see things that nobody should see, and people on the worst days of their lives. My expression doesn't change. It can't. It simply can't. Whether you walk into a hospital and see somebody bandaged from head to foot except for their eyes, you cannot change your expression. As soon as you do, the patient feels like they're in more danger than they thought. So you talk to them on the worst day of their life and try to help. You don't proselytize. You're just a human being, not putting out the fire, not investigating the death site. So I think I'm pretty calm in those things, in that time, and I think I learned that from the military.
Well, on behalf of the Americans in Wartime Experience, I thank you for sitting down and telling your story, and more importantly, thank you for your service, because you are 100% right. Service to others is very important, no matter what form that takes.
No matter what form, you're absolutely right.
Yeah. Well, thank you, sir.
Thank you. Appreciate your time.